So we learned in an earlier lesson that we are often segregated by age group. And so we can look to social psychology to understand what to do about age segregation. And one thing that's really interesting about this research is that a lot of the researchers were inspired by the events from World War II, where feeling very much segregated and antagonistic between groups created these awful conditions during World War II. So one very famous experiment from the social psychological literature comes from something called the Robbers Cave experiment, which was very involved. This was done by Sharif. And what they did here is they actually created a whole summer camp for boys, and they invited these boys to the camp. They wanted to create a sense of competition and group identity among these boys, and they did this actually very easily. They randomly split the boys up into two teams. There were the Rattlers on one team and the Eagles on another team. And they had them do competitions like tug of war or different kinds of games together. And soon the teams felt very much identified with their group. They were actually calling each other names, and they even, burned the flag of the other team when it came down to it. So the psychologists were very capable of creating group identity and group conflict. And so after they created this group identity and competition, they wanted to see, well, can we dismantle this conflict or this sense of us versus them? What they found to be particularly effective was actually sort of a fluke as part of the summer camp. Just by chance, the camp truck or the van actually broke down, and everyone had to work together to pull that van out of the mud and get it working again. And so that's sort of an organic part of the experiment, but they found that having that superordinate goal and having to work together cooperatively facilitated intergroup relations. The boys on both teams, started to talk to each other more, use less name calling, eat together at the cafeteria. And so that was one lesson that they learned from this intense kind of experiment, that having some kind of subordinate goal to work together can facilitate group relations. So think about that in terms of age segregation. What are some ways where we can have people from different age groups work together towards some goal, and that can potentially facilitate more relationships with each other? We're just going to talk about one other famous experiment that looked at how you can help increase positive relations between people. The Texas School District actually asked a famous psychologist, Elliot Aronson, to come into their school district because they had been having problems with race relations among the children, between Black and Latino children and white children. So this psychologist came in and created something called the Jigsaw Classroom. What he did was he created group projects with teachers where students were assigned to work together, and these were students from different racial and ethnic groups, and each student had a key role in completing the group project. There was no way the group project could be done successfully without each individual's part. So each student had their own information and their key role in contributing to successfully completing the assignment. So what he found was, through doing this interventions at schools, there was actually better race relations among the school children. Right, so again, think about how can we relate this to age segregation? Can we create situations where people from different age groups each have a very vital role and are each important in attaining some kind of end goal? So through lots of decades of research from social psychology, we do know that having more contact between people of different groups can help facilitate relationships between them. But you can think about lots of situations where you have a lot of contact with another group and you still might feel prejudice against them. So you might live in a neighborhood where there's people from different racial groups. We live in Southern California where there's lots of different groups, but people can still hold a lot of prejudice. So they found there are some key things that helped above and beyond just having contact with a different group. One is also having more cooperation between people from different groups. So things like from the Robbers Cave experiment and the Jigsaw classroom, if people have to work together for some superordinate goal, that will facilitate better relations. And a second one is to have more friendships and effective ties between people from different groups. So you can't just live around someone from a different group than you. You can work with them. You really need to create those friendships and emotional bonds to reduce prejudice. So a lot of this research has primarily been done with people from different ethnic and racial groups, but we can also apply the same principles to age segregation. So that's why for your first assignment, I'd like you to try to have some contact with someone from a different age group from you and try to find some way to create friendships and cooperate with someone from a different age group and see what happens. So in summary, our society now is very segregated by age. We tend to have people of all the same age group at school together, for example. But this segregation can increase stereotyping by age and ageism and prejudice. So if we have more contact between people from different age groups and have them work together for some subordinate goal, create friendships between people from different age groups, this can reduce bias. And again, as age is one of those categories where we all will become old, in the long term, this will help us ourselves as we become older, and we would want to work towards reducing prejudice against the elderly.